that can impact a fetus coming into the world. So in this chapter, we're looking at being born. All right, we're going to look at some of the factors attributed to the development and growth, mostly physical. So maybe we'll take a look at the neurons, what that actually looks like. How do we actually make connections within our brain to exchange information with the rest of our body? We'll talk about breastfeeding, the importance of that. We'll talk about some other environmental concerns for infants. We'll also look at reflexes, things that we are innately given for a certain amount of time that can enable our survival. I think we'll talk about SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome, as well today. All right, so growth trends for an infant. Here, an infant is defined as anything 2 years of age or younger. We'll start with kind of focusing on the first year of life, what all that happens, what all that should happen, right? What is considered normal, what's considered abnormal. One of them is just really the growth norms, right? We're saying here, ratio of head to body size is about 1 to 4, right, for a baby, and that seems pretty normal. Us as adults, we say that our head takes up about a 7th of our size, right? So it's important that we see good development with the head as opposed to the body. Some uneven growth factors that we can observe is a small head. Is there a small head? That's a good indicator that something is terribly wrong, right, developmentally, and we need to be sort of focusing attention on that. A small body as well too can indicate malnutrition, which is not good, which we'll learn more about that. Two kind of theories we're looking at. Cephalocauda, which basically says the body follows the head, sort of a top to down approach. And so a lot of sort of medical practitioners kind of look at that, right? Look like how is the body flowing from the head in terms of motor skill development and things like that. Others have a different theory. They think that, well, essentially, from the center of our body spread out, right? You can't move fingers until you have an arm, right? You can't move a hand until you have an arm. So we'll kind of look at what those two theories kind of look like. Some health and environmental factors. What kind of environment is the baby in or the infant in? What's the temperature around the environment? What kind of noises, sounds, sights, what are some things affecting baby there? All right, so we say newborns lose up to 10% of their body weight right after birth, right? Why do you think that is? Lose about 10%, and then they normalize after that. 10% of body weight after birth. Fluid, right? So we say, hey, the baby has a lot of excess fluid that it got from mom that it no longer needs, right? we don't see that body weight sort of go back to normal after about 2 weeks, then we know that something's up, right? So for about 2 weeks, we see a quick decline in body weight, so we need to pay attention to that. Growth norms. We say, well, what's normal is dependent on some contextual factors, right? Thinking, what is your culture? That impacts, right? That impacts because what kind of diet does mom have? She's going to be breastfeeding, right? What are some of the rates of growth within that culture? So ethnic background is a substantial factor that affects growth rates. Some cultures grow quicker than others, right? Other development is more rapid. Some is a little bit more slow. So we say nutrition is extremely important at this stage. And so the World Health Organization, the Academy for Pediatricians recommend breastfeeding over anything, right? What is an alternative to breastfeeding? Formula, right? Why do you think breastfeeding would be more important than just giving the baby a bottle of formula? What kind of factors? Yes. Can help.
The mother has antibodies.
So when we read the chapter, right? So mother has antibodies to protect against diseases, viruses. What else? What other things you could think of? Right? You think, hey, baby came from, yes.
I was gonna say, nutrients that, maybe like the formula doesn't have, like the mother has to its baby.
Could possibly be, but most importantly, is the right mix, right? Like, baby came from this vessel will have the right mix of all the essential vitamins, nutrients, antibodies, right? So nature has already pre-designed that you have the perfect formula for that particular baby. As opposed to say, you go buy some formula, yeah, it still has all the stuff with the absence of like antibodies and things like that, but it may not be the perfect sort of mixture, right? The right amounts, the degree of amounts. What other reasons? Like what can be helpful for baby through breastfeeding? What else? What did you think of? Could breastfeeding be good for mom and baby?
Mine after abuse all that, they were breast anyway, so might as well go to the baby rather than use some machine.
And you're like, okay, well, like excess lactate, right? Excess breast milk. What are we gonna?
Maybe like, strengthens the mother and child connection.
Hey, you say bonding, right? That's a natural form of bonding. It helps mom sort of balance her serotonin levels. It's been shown that without breastfeeding, you just have a newborn, just give them formula, you're at higher risk for depression, right? Because you just went through a very traumatic event. Mom just went through trauma by having a baby, right? And so nature has designed some other mechanisms for things to kind of balance themselves out, which is this bonding sort of feature. Also for baby too, right? Baby needs to sort of attach and bond to mom too, so it works. Breastfeeding is linked with maternity leave in the United States. The recommendation is that you should breastfeed at minimum for about 6 months, right? And at that point, you could kind of wean baby off because baby's diet will begin to change slightly at 6 months. Usually maternity leave is about 6 months. Sometimes I think they go up to like 9 months, but that's the linkage. Some factors affecting breastfeeding include maternal age. Remember we said past the age of 35 is a geriatric pregnancy. So there could be some issues with mom that can impact her ability to breastfeed. You can say, hey, breastfeeding is not always comfortable, right? People can experience like cracks on their nipples, baby sucking on the nipples for so long. It can be very painful, right? Usually you will breastfeed breastfeed in the first 6 months, about every 2 to 3 hours. And we're talking about like maybe 20 minutes or so breastfeeding every 2 to 3 hours. That's quite a bit. Breastfeeding also differs due to racial and ethnic differences. You're like, well, why is that? Well, there's some different socioeconomic statuses, right? Ethnic groups and racial groups. Some people have dominant economic positions than others, right? You say, well, how would that impact? And you say, well, some people are just not educated on it. They're not educated on the healthy effects for breastfeeding. Maybe they're able to access some sort of clinical care to get the right counseling about their practices for their babies. So there's some differences there. Both infant and mothers benefit from it, as we said, right? We're talking about digestion. Babies can digest natural breastfeeding mechanisms over, say, formula. Right? As babies age, the need for milk lowers. So we say past 6 months, the diet will change. They won't need as much milk. You can start to supplement with some other thing. Excessive weight gain in infancy can lead to childhood obesity, which means that with the formula, sometimes you can't get that right amount, and you'll start to see the baby just really start to blow up in weight. You're like, that's not good, because that will lead to childhood obesity, which will lead to adulthood obesity. Those are long-term sort of factors that can affect. And here, as we look at babies' brain growth, I have a diagram we could look at, maybe neurons. Malnourishment, right? Malnourishment can lower several cognitive skills for baby, right? So baby needs proper nutrition. We can say baby's fat and muscle can start to waste away if don't give proper nutrition. Malnourishment is not found in just in impoverished countries. It's found also here in very wealthy countries. And then vaccinations. There are recommendations to get maybe around 10 vaccinations for the first, say, 2 years of your life, right? All sorts of things to protect against hepatitis, influenza, right? Measles, mumps, things like that. Some people are against vaccinations, right? Anti-vaxxers, as we saw during COVID and post-COVID. Hey, we have our own sort of perspective on it. Maybe that'll be a group discussion. Children living in poverty are less likely to be fully vaccinated. Why do you think that is? What do you think? Ideological? Just access to getting to the hospitals? How about we do this? This will be our first group discussion. Vaccination. So let's say the vax. All right? Let's say pros and cons from your perspectives in your groups. Should the kids be vaccinated by medical facility? Should you let things naturally sort of just come on so that the child can build its own natural immunity? If so, what do you think are the good things about vaccination? What do you think are the bad things about them promoting or even pushing vaccination on children? Do you think that it should be totally required? So how about we discuss that for about 2 minutes within our groups? Should When should people be able to reject, right?
I know like it's like TV, right? The one that you got the post when you like get there like the vaccine. Yeah, but like the rates drop and stuff like that. I feel like disease prevention.
Yeah.
Because we still have
The question are, hey, but if you are for or against childhood vaccination, so do you think there are reasons you think they should have it develop naturally, and develop their own immunization?
like I feel like at the same time.
Immunity. Should there be consequences for those who don't get their child vaccinated? And then they have to take care of safety. What would be some reasons not, other than that, not to get vaccinated?
If they haven't been exposed to the sickness, they should just go for it. If they catch it. Like if they get sick.
The first time they're gonna be wasted. If they had like vaccines, they would already know what it sort of like
Like I could agree with not getting it right away, but I understand.
Think about that. Can you go to school?
right?
Right? Yeah.
Come in contact.
Hey, you can't get in school. You didn't get your tetanus shot, right? You didn't get this and that.
They can get sick off each other.
For like 2 weeks.
It's already there. Progress, science and stuff. If you have it, you might as well just take it.
My mom's like, you're gonna die. I'm like, I'm not gonna die.
Later on.
I know that's what my mom was like, you're gonna die. And I feel like in the future, I'm like, okay. I don't think it does all that.
So if you guys just actually. My parents had it once. I just got it.
It was like my junior year, I had it like every other week. I'm just like every day at school. Like seriously.
All right, what do you think? Hey, the schools say you need to be vaccinated, or you can't get in. What are you gonna do about that? Like, what are some of your thoughts over here? Pros and cons. So why would people be for or against vaccination? What are your thoughts?
So for vaccinations, it could protect your baby against a lot of the diseases that are easily passed on in school or in other environments.
So like, hey, it's kind of the certainty that they'll be protected against things that we know through research that could highly impact the child forever. Like measles and mumps have a lifelong effect. Right? You're talking about that's like the development of the brain that things can impact, as opposed to winging it. Right? Like, I don't know, maybe it'd be fine, maybe not. Anything else?
If you have the resources to access vaccines and stuff, you should get it because I know a lot of places, can offer that access that maybe you're doing.
All right, have access, take advantage of it. Group back there.
We said that we think that there should be consequences for, you know, what we consider vaccinations.
perspective on something, right? And now you say, hey, do you want your kid to go to school or be at a daycare with other children? Now we got a whole conundrum, right? They were like, hey, your kid could be exposing my kid to a bunch of stuff. So it's a social thing, right? What about here? Or here? Nice, same group. Here.
So I guess adding on to what you just said, you can pass the virus on to whoever you have, if you weren't vaccinated, I guess. And then we also have, like, even later on in life, you need to be vaccinated for certain schooling. Like one of our teammates, she had trouble getting to school because she wasn't vaccinated for something. And even with like, into adulthood, you need to get like HPV shots. And that can also really help you, like, you know, not contracting STIs or anything. And some people think that vaccinations can cause other things as like a con. Like, yeah.
What?
Like some people think that certain vaccinations can cause autism, which, you know,
Right,
do your own
interesting.
research.
Yeah,
But-
you're like, that's the word that goes around is that,
Yeah.
hey, a lot of these vaccinations have create symptoms of autism, right? And we say, well, what's autism? A giant spectrum of disorders, social, emotional things that have like a gazillion things that we can name, right? So we don't really have any research to relate it to anything specifically, but some people still think that. Back here, anybody has any opposing, like, why absolutely, like, people should not shoot? Maybe it's just a religious belief.
Not really, kind of just discuss like, it's the, first and foremost, it's the parent's choice if they want to vaccinate their child or not. And then, we'll mostly discuss like, there should be, if you decide not to have it immediately, then that's also your choice, but you should later in life, because we also at risk. Like everybody else said, it's herd immunity, so if we have all majority have it, the vaccination, then you're less likely to get the disease.
Hey, what do you say, man? It's my religious belief. We don't believe in this. We don't believe in rejection.
That's your choice. I can't tell you what to think or how to believe. But, the health risks are more for yourself. I know that we mostly decreased polio and stuff like that because of the vaccination, so.
Yeah, you say, hey, okay, your religious belief is one thing, but you're talking about being integrated into an entire society, so we win, right? Somebody has to win, we win the argument.
I think we should just have our own little school, just all kids who aren't vaccinated, keep those diseases over there.
Yeah, you know, it's also, but think about that, that's the perfect world sort of ideology, but maybe this is all natural for us to be for or against things, right? Because we don't also wanna consume everything as opposed to researchers told us, right? There would be some other factors for reason. What do you think?
Well, we say it's different to the person, like, you might have things that make you more susceptible to, illnesses, so you have to be vaccinated. Again, not as other people are, that is,
Now, you could have a predisposition, you could be sensitive, you could catch something quickly.
From like reading and stuff like that, let's say the child fights it on its own, since it's like little, it also wants to risk if it tries to fight it on its own and it's in the system it's not built with, the child potentially dies.
Yeah, but
Or
that's it.
we also talked about how, for example, me, I'm diabetic. I had to take a COVID-19 shot because COVID-19 is more susceptible to, it's like a child could be born with a predisposition illness. So what happens then is the child already has an illness and now has to fight another one without any sort of protection.
Yeah, you could be complicated, right? Complicated stuff. What about in the back?
Yeah, we pretty much agree with her, because their immune systems, they won't, be protected as much, and from the diseases, and like a con, who said that, it depends on the body, like, it depends on how they're gonna react to it. So like, one baby can be like, oh, they got it, all that, another baby can be like, I can't take that, it's gonna affect me, like,
see, it's complicated, right? As a whole, human beings like to have predictive value. The whole point of psychology is for us to kind of express, yes.
I was gonna ask, as far as access of family, are most, vaccinations that you like as a child covered by insurances? No.
Usually they are, yeah, if you have insurance, yeah, definitely, yes,
I don't know if like
and-
access plays a role into it or not, so if like everyone has access to it, there's no reason why you shouldn't.
yeah, I think if you don't have insurance, right, it would be a major issue. Hey, it's complicated, right? People have their cultural beliefs, and we say culture is very strong, maybe the most strongest thing in terms of human behavior. People have their religious ideologies, people may get their information off the internet instead of speaking with medical professionals that actually do it every day. Right? People have their families that they kind of listen to, people have their traditions and values. It's complicated, right? As we saw with COVID. It's not gonna be a perfect world, it never will be. Okay, moving along. All right, the brain development, extremely important. So you're like, well, how does it all start? Where did this all come from, right? Who's taken some sort of anatomy or physiology class that talked about neurons? Who's unfamiliar with neurons? Anyone? All right, so we say, hey, the human brain has cells. Billions and billions, 100 billion of these cells, right? Neurons. They say, well, how does it all really work? Well, we can think of it a few ways, right? We say we need to send messages at the speed of light, right? At the speed of light, instantaneous. Instantaneous. You think of how fast light can move, and talking about this, the size of the human body, we're talking microseconds. So we're sending information from one place to the next, right? We're talking about from the brain to the rest of the body to communicate responses, reflexes, impulses, all sorts of things. Right? And so we could start off here with the, say, nucleus. As we saw with other cells, every cell has a nucleus, right? And that sort of covers all of the information that's going to be needed to code and program sort of instructions of what to do. Next, we have this highway system. We could call that the axon. So you think of essentially this is kind of like an electrical wire. Think of it like an electrical wire. Maybe you got like copper inside, and then you have this thing around it called the Lyman sheet. You kind of think of that almost like the rubber, the silicon covering over an electrical wire. Right, so essentially you're sending electrical and chemical impulses of information down this highway system from one area to the next. Right? Here where it disperses out into these little branches or fingers, that's called dendrites. And this is where this information will go over to the next cell. Right? So it's coming through here, through the axon terminals, shooting down this electrical and chemical impulses, right? And shooting out. Also interposing with the nucleus with information. So not that difficult to understand, right? We'll look at it more as we look at the actual synapses, the gaps, and how that looks like a little bit more. But you have to think of if anything happens in these systems, or we're not building enough of these, or we say the signal is not strong enough or not coming through, or there's some sort of blockage, then we can see how different parts of the body are affected. So we're going to start here to have some sort of basis of reference. Any questions about that? All right. I had a quick video on, I think it's the first year of infant development. Let me take a look at that.
Today's video topic is baby development milestones in the first year. The first year of life for a baby is a time of incredible growth and development. Here are some milestones to expect in your baby's first 12 months. First month, your baby will start to show some basic signs of development by 1 month old. They will be able to lift their hands to their mouth. Your baby will also start to have some basic reflexes to some bright lights and loud sounds. Second month, your baby will continue to grow and develop at a rapid pace during their second month. They'll be able to hold their head up, as well as track close objects with their eyes. You may also notice your baby starting to babble and make cooing sounds. Third month, by 3 months old, your baby will be much more coordinated. They will also be able to reach out and grab for objects with greater control. You may also notice smiling at your voice and being able to recognize familiar faces. You may also notice your baby starting to babble more frequently. Fourth month, your baby will continue to grow and develop rapidly during their fourth month. They'll be able to roll over from back to tummy and will push down on their legs when you hold them in a standing position. Fifth month, by 5 months old, your baby will be even more active and mobile. They'll be able to roll from tummy to their back and from back to tummy again. You may also notice your baby is able to move objects between hands. 6 month, by 6 months old, your baby will be a lot more independent. They'll be able to sit up without your support for a short time. You may also notice your baby recognizing his or her name and expressing more emotions such as crying when sad and laughing when happy. 7th month, by 7 months old, your baby will improve what he already learned. He'll be able to sit up without support for longer periods. And they'll also get better at recognizing your emotions and respond to them. 8th month, by 8 months old, your baby will start to learn the crawling movement. They'll be able to get in a standing position for a short time. They will also continue to babble, and the drooling will increase a lot in this period. 9th month, by 9 months old, your baby will be a lot more active. They'll be able to crawl and stand up for longer periods. You may also notice your baby pointing to things they want. 10th month, by 10 months old, your baby will be able to shift from lying down to crawling to standing up. They may even be able to walk while holding on to things around them. They will also be a lot more active during their playing. 11th month, by 11 months old, your baby will be able to understand you a lot more. They may even be able to say some words and understand your simple statements. They may also start replicating some of your behaviors. 12th month, by 12 months old, your baby will turn into a toddler. They will be able to stand and take some steps. They'll also be able to say a few words and use some objects correctly, like a spoon. And they may throw objects and toys a lot during this period.
All right, so baby,
Please do not forget to
we see baby go through some very quick developments during this stage. There's a burst of changes. We are born with reflexes. What kind of reflexes do you think we're born with? What did baby have that it can do at birth? Yes. Yeah, you say, hey, grasping, right? Baby can grasp very strongly, right? You can let baby hold on to your finger. You can pick baby off the ground like this. Very strong grasping. What else? For those of you who got nieces and nephews, little brothers and sisters, what have you noticed at birth?
Crying with pain.
Yeah, you say, hey, that's a reflex, right? Crying for some sort of stressor. What else do you think of?
They don't look like they're shooting, like, almost like they're in. Like, I don't know.
Like they brace themselves?
Yeah, like you brace themselves, and they don't know what's going on, it's like their feet just start moving.
Yeah. As you see, hey, baby starts developing even the reflex of trying to place, like, push down on their legs at some point. You have a baby, you hold them, you try to place them on the ground, to, like, spread their legs out as if they're preparing to, like, walk. They have to find mom's breasts in order to feed themselves, right? So they're sort of rooting, right? You can tickle or touch the side of the baby's cheek, and they'll start like doing sucking motion, right? So baby already knows how to suck, that's a reflex, right? It has to suck out mom's breast milk in a particular way too, right? In which case they kind of rooted up up to the top of their palate, their upper palate, and they begin to suck. Not like kind of how we would, but like a sucker or something like that. Babies also have a startle reflex. Anyone ever seen that? Startle reflex? Let me pull that up.
This is Monroe, reflects by having him relax unsuspecting and then give him a sudden stimulus, and there's good Monroe, quiet, headline, and then just get a stimulus of dropping him back a few inches, and that's a good Monroe response. Okay.
What's that about? Why do we need to know a baby has a really good startle or moral reflex? What can that tell us?
That helps with like proprioception, if you can go, if you
Yeah.
understand.
Yeah, baby, we know that baby's brain can actually acknowledge some sort of shift in movement, body movement, experience of some sort of danger to them. Maybe they're falling back, maybe they're preparing themselves to sort of alert someone around that something's happening. Right, so baby's learning, a ton of learning. We'll talk about different ways that we learn. Classical conditioning, right? Operant conditioning, sort of mimicry, imitation. Who knows what classical conditioning is?
Oh, like the whole, when it's time for a dog to be fed type thing, like, if the bell rings, you know it's time to leave.
All right, so we're talking about Pavlov's dog. Who remembers that? Right? So classical conditioning is associative learning. So baby can associate one thing to the next, right? It can associate mom's voice, maybe to being soothed. It can associate a loud sound, that could be a startling sort of feature, as opposed to operant conditioning. Anyone remember operant conditioning? What can you tell us about that?
It like has like rewards and punishments to like modify behavior.
Yeah. So you say, hey, baby also needs to learn positive and negative reinforcements and punishment, right? So we have to introduce baby that not everything can happen the way it wants to happen. So if excessive crying, remember I said like giving the baby too fast can cause even long-term effects in adolescence. Giving the baby kind of too late can also cause long-term effects. We just want the right healthy amount in terms of how we're going to condition the baby. And then we have imitation. Babies need to learn by imitation. Right? They need to be able to mimic what they see adults do. In our brains, we have something called mirror neurons, right? In which case we can look out into the world and observe each other and be able to mimic and imitate others for our own survival, to be able to see what's right, what's wrong, what's dangerous, what's not dangerous. Okay, let's do this. We're gonna stop here for today. I don't want to get too far into the brain yet. So we'll stop here. Let's try to come up with our topics for our presentations by Friday. I'll place something on Blackboard for you to submit your topics so I know what they're gonna be. I can kind of keep tabs on your development. And then we're starting in week 7 with our presentations, beginning with group 1. So after each week, after week 7 will be another group. We'll probably do presentations on Wednesdays, just so it's in the middle of the week and not the beginning. But I'll put more information on Blackboard for you for that. All right, everyone. I'll see you on Wednesday.